Hey, what's going on, YouTube family? I'm back again. My name is Mark, where I like talking all things music in my own personal series, Mark Under the Microscope, where I give you an inside look as to who I am as a person through inspirational and motivational vlogging. So if you like things like that, please remember to slash that like button and annihilate that subscribe button and hit that post notification bell. I drop videos like this every Monday and Friday and every day in between. And also, leave me comments down below. I love interacting with you guys, and I also do subscriber request. So huge shout out to my subscribers out there. I love you guys, because without you there would be no channel and there would be no me. But I think I've talked enough, so let's just jump straight into these videos. Let's go.
I knew you'd come. Somehow I just knew you'd find me. Not knowing where I was or when I was coming back sent you crazy. I kept my spies on you.
These walls, I'ma find out what's going on. I'm gonna find the cure for our people's downfall. I'm gonna find out why we filling up penitentiaries faster than they can build them. I'm gonna find out why half our population is behind bars in the penitentiaries and caught in the system. I'm gonna find out why all our people are getting locked up. I'm gonna find the answers. We're under a silent attack, man.
I love the way this beat is started.
We're only gonna get stronger. Just me and you, let's take the town over. You my best friend and a down soldier. At your apartments we could stack dollars. Family since knee high to grasshoppers. So I trust you, love you like a brother. I wish you knew she's and I could, but I haven't. I know she holds your heart. You know the streets, but you're not so smart. Fuck it though, let's make fast Fetty, man. Hit these motherfucking streets like some heavy rain.
Ooh, come on.
Burglars and murderers. If a fiend wants a front, take his furniture. We a team, that's how it should have been. Whether shooting hoop or selling dope at Winning Glen. Public housing on Fridays, pushing thousands. 50-50, together we was moving mountains. One day, they will come and try to take your life away.
Ooh, come on, SP.
Devil strike, it's a left hand. They just love to see you when you down, man. For when devil strike. I get a call from my boy about 7:30. Eating pizza with my bitch, watching Eddie Murphy. Said it's working, but something went wrong. I grabbed my gat and put my bulletproof vest on. Meet him at Palace in room 6. Turns out he was smoking crack with 2 chicks. He said, Los, I took a few hits at 2 a.m. After that I haven't stopped until you came in. Got 12 rocks left out of 40, fool. Take what I got, or I'll smoke them too. See, the money started coming in real late, so I tried some, just to be awake. I thought it'd be like coke, that's why I did it. But man, it's like 10 times more addictive. That night, he turned to a crackhead. A month later, my boy looked half dead.
Ooh, come on.
They will come and try to take your life away. For when devil strike, it's a love thing. They just love to see you when you down, man. For when devil strike. Cops caught him with a pipe full of residue. I was sad, but I felt it would help him too. He got 2 years, now he's getting healthier. He's in the pen, and I regret I fell for her. Out to a place called Lizard Lounge. She had soda, me, I was sipping Crown. We agreed on a friendly date, no touching. By the end of the night, we was both fucking. At my trailer was the first time that we did it. I know it hurts, so I won't get that specific. But remember on the first day you got out, and we met right in front of your mom's house? I cried like a pig, I was feeling low. I couldn't tell you cause I knew you would kill the hoe. I was mad at me, and I hated her. A month later, she asked if I came in her. She got pregnant and didn't know whose it was. If you're hot right now, you might lose your buzz.
Ooh, come on.
She lied and said it never happened. Now she's suing for the money that I get from rapping. I lost the case, but how did I expect to win when my jury didn't have one Mexican?
Ooh, come on.
I didn't do that dumb shit. Now I gotta show them who they with. One day they will come and try to take your life away. For when devil strike, it's a left hand. They just love to see you when you down, man. For when devil strike.
Okay, so I quickly want to talk about when Devils Strike by SPM, and I want to talk about how genius this song is and how well executed it was done. And I know I say this all the time, that with each song that this by far is my favorite song, but I feel like I cannot sit here and stress this enough, that every time I listen to an SPM song, I get a new favorite song with each reaction, and it's because of you guys. So big shout out to you. Thank you. What I want to sit here and talk about, what I love about this song, When Devils Strike, is I love the imagery that he painted with this, when he basically of him sitting here painting out the devils. I love how he sat there and painted out the jury being the devils. I love how he painted out the prosecutors being the devils. I love how he painted out basically the judge being the devils. I love how he painted out how people who bring up false allegations against you can be the devils. I love how he sat there and painted out how, like, just the system and the police in general can be painted out to be the devils. And that's not saying that all people who reside in these professions or are picked in these selections are devils, or they are here to create ill will, but we do have to sit here and face facts. And we wouldn't be real with ourselves if we didn't highlight the disproportionate aspects of how the prison industrial complex and our criminal justice system, especially within the United States, affects Latino Americans, and also disproportionately affects African Americans. Because when you look at the prison rates, that there are a lot of African Americans and Latino Americans in prison for petty crimes, and also at disproportional rates to other counterparts of other races for other for crimes that I want to say that the other racial counterparts would not sit there and be subjected to. They would either get probation, or they would, since they have the finances and the means, or they have the reason to be protected within a system that sits there and guards and protects them. Because I'll always equate the prison industrial complex and the system as a game of chess, and I believe it as the king piece. You're often guarded. No, you're often, the king piece in chess is guarded and protected. But then I also feel like black men and Latino men are often used as the queen piece, as the sacrificial lamb, because you're the least guarded, the least protected, except for wherever position, that whatever side that you're on, because you're never innocent until proven guilty. You're guilty until proven innocent in a court of law 9 times out of 10 when it comes to being Latino American and African American. And that's just facts within the prison industrial complex. And I love how he highlighted that within this. I love how he brought into context with this beat, because with this beat, I actually sonically, took me to a place where it almost took, where I basically envision him inside of a courtroom, sitting down with a defense attorney, and there's a defense attorney trying to defend him, maybe even a public defender, but I'm sure he had money to get himself a defense attorney. But it just painted the picture of just how eerie it is just to sit there and have your life hang in a balance of a disproportionate people, and how he even mentioned that not even one Mexican American person was on the jury that can sit there and level with him or even see his struggle. Because 9 times out of 10, when you're trying to get a conviction, the prosecution in the state is sitting there trying to assemble a group of people that will get them the best possible way of getting a conviction. So you're not sitting there putting it in the best interest of the person who's being defended against. And that's just facts. I mean, I have one of my degrees in criminal justice, so I kind of know a little bit about the criminal justice system. And then also I'm trying to get into law school as well. And one of my reasons for wanting to do so was because of how Latino Americans and Black Americans are disproportionately affected within a prison industrial complex because of the color of our skin. And we are not often seen as humans. We're often deemed as savages, well as we are seen as people. And that's just a fact within itself. And so I love how he sat there and was able to paint this picture and tell this story and just create this eerie effect. I almost felt like through this whole concept of the outline of this song that it was basically like almost like a judgment day, that he was awaiting his fate. And it was almost as in a way that I almost thought he was on death row, if that makes him if that makes sense. Because you know how like when you sit there and get that type of like if you were to sit there and watch a movie or a documentary and they have that eerie type vibe of a song playing, and you could sense somebody being shackled and taken to their being taken to the electric chair, or to being taken to the lethal injection the panel where they laying on a I can't think of the exact word. I'm going to just say a gurney, just for hypothetical reasons. But for the bed, when they're sitting there taking you, I could just sit there and imagine him sitting there handcuffed, like chained, sitting there walking down the prison walls, just rapping this and singing this. Like he painted an illusion and a story for me to sit there and be able to sit there and picture him sitting there trying to escape everything from the outside, from before he was arrested, into sitting there getting into central booking, and then into being put onto basically the whole process of being judged with the jury selection. I sit there and I can picture him in his suit with the different lawyers sitting there arguing against each for the state and arguing for and the defense attorney arguing for him. I could see the judge just sitting there and then going back to his chambers. I could just see and envision the jury just sitting there contemplating and just seeing him more as an animal, more as than him sitting there being a person himself. Because of the reason why I say that is because, like I said, the jury 9 times out of 10, when we sit there and look at the system, especially within the United States, they always tend to see African Americans and Latino Americans as animals well before they see us as people. And it's such a shame that we have to sit there and sometimes fight for our lives, and it seems that we have to sit here and be disproportionately aspected and don't get to see the proper representation. We don't get to see the proper representation on the police force. We don't get to see the proper representation on the judge bench. We don't get to see the proper representation within the legal teams with the different types of lawyers. We don't get to see the proper representation with people who are deciding our fate with on a jury, with the jury selection. We don't get, and then the only time we actually physically get to see the proper representation is when we get inside the system. And then on top of that, it's like it almost comes to a fact, will you make it out the system alive to sit there and even try to even live a normal life? And then it's like, if you try to live a normal life within the United States, our system is set up in such a way that it doesn't rehabilitate. It sits there and often sets you up to sit there and recycle yourself to get thrown back into the system. So it's a repeated ripple effect of emotion and pain that you have to sit there and go through. And so I love that he was able to paint this story through When Devils Strike, because when I sit there and think about it, all I can sit there and think about is, wow, like when you sit there and think about the story that he was painting, and just with just the time that he took to choose this beat and sit there and be like, okay, you're sitting there thinking like Grim Reaper, you're sitting there thinking of somebody sitting there judging you, you're sitting there thinking about somebody who ultimately can take your life away from you and ultimately can decide your freedom and your fate. And that's what you sit there and think about when you think of heaven and hell. It's like when you think of the devil and you think of God, you think of somebody, you think of two entities that sit there and decide your fate, and whether you're sitting there being casted to hell for your evil doings, or you're let through the gates of heaven to live an eternal lasting life. And so it's like you're almost on a judgment day, so to speak. And I love that he was able to sit there and paint that picture. I thought he did a phenomenal job with this song. This is obviously probably one of my favorite songs to date by him, and I know I say that a lot, and I just said that at the beginning of this reaction, because of the simple fact is because he is such a force and such an amazing storyteller. I think that SPM is so dope in that regard, and it's just that you cannot do anything but take your hats off for somebody who can sit there and paint a picture without having to sit there and see any type of physical video or imagery of the video. I think he does a phenomenal job painting a picture and getting his point across, of letting you know and affecting and touching a chord within the listener, or whoever, just a casual fan or just anybody who's not even a fan. If you just happen to hear this on a radio, you'd be like, damn, like whether you're white, black, Mexican, yellow, purple, Asian, Native American, anything, anybody who sits there, because I'm not going to sit there and just say that the prison industrial complex just affects minorities, but it just disproportionately affects us. But anybody who sat there and had to deal with somebody who sit there and probably had like petty crimes put against them, and I'm not advocating that these people shouldn't sit there and receive any type of like reprimand from that, but at the same time, it's like I feel like a lot of times that our system is put in place where it's disproportionate to sit there and just sit there and just throw away and not sit there and try to rehabilitate or sit there and try to fix the root of the problem, because he even sits there and speaks about how and like his lifestyle and how he had to sit there and go through that. And it's like when you sit there and you can only play the hand that you're dealt, and that's what I feel like SPM always has sit there and talks about within his songs, that you can only play the hand that you are dealt. If you're sitting there if you're dealt a crappy hand, you have no choice but to sit there and play that hand, because you have to sit there and put food on his table for your family. You have to sit there and put food on the family for yourself. You have to sit there and basically sit there and try to make a life and a living for yourself. And it's like oftentimes within America, it's like we have people who sit at the top who don't see that. They sit there and just see the color of your skin, and they be like, okay, I can't relate to that, so that has nothing to do with me, so I'm just gonna disregard you as a person. So I just love the fact that SPM is able to highlight that and show that through his lyrics, his lyricism, and his bars and his musicality, that a lot of times that the system just disproportionately affects minorities, especially Latino Americans and African Americans, where we're not seen as human, where we're often devalued within the system. And I love that he was able to do that, and he just sheds light on it. And I feel like anybody who's regardless of any race or any nationality can relate to this, who had to sit there and deal with this, because there are 9 times out of 10 you sit there and you get thrown into the system, and then especially if you don't even have the money to sit there and cover, to sit there and basically be well represented, you're sitting there dealing with a public defender that 10 times out of 10 doesn't even know your name and doesn't even care to know your name, and sits there and has a caseload thrown on them, where they're just sitting there just like, okay, get this person out, get this person out, get this person out, get this person out, and on to the next one. So I love how he was able to sit there and highlight that and show that there is a problem within the system. I think that this track is dope. I love it. I love how he sat there and was able to connect it and make it sit and connect it to just when the devil strikes. I love the imagery. I love what he painted. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal and amazing. And SPM, you just do an awesome job telling a story and getting your point across. You are such a boss and such a force and such a king in doing that. Like, that's all that can be sat there and be said, that you do such a phenomenal job doing that. And it's like, I can't sit there and relate to that, because I'm not a person who sat there and was in I could have been one step away because of the life I had to sit there and live. Because when you're sitting there thrown into the foster care system, and then you don't have, and you come from the background where I come from, of not having a mother and a father, and then being sexually abused, and then emotionally abused, and psychologically abused, and then growing up in poverty and just bullied and stuff like that, you're oftentimes thrown within this system where you sit there and retaliate, and you take that out against those people, take that out against people, and just play the hand that you're dealt. And it's like I always sit there and say I can never judge people who sit there and are going through this, because I could have been one step away from being in the shoes that you are. I just happened to take a different avenue and a different path, and to sit there and realize that I had to sit there and that I didn't want to be like my father, and sit there and be like this big drug dealer that he was, and sit there and be in and out of federal prison, or sit there and be like my mom, who had to sit there and be within the system as well, being in federal prison as well herself. So it's like when I sit there and think about it, I could have been one step away from being somebody like that. So who am I to sit there and judge? I can only give my honest input, and to give my honest evaluation and assess the situation, and talk about how it disproportionately affects families, and disproportionately affects the person who is suffering from that. So I just think he did a phenomenal job, and I love this song. I thought it was dope. I'm not going to rate it. And with that being said, let me know what you thought in the comments below of SPM When Devils Strike. And with that being said, please remember to be safe out there. Remember to stay awesome, be awesome, because you guys are all awesome. This is your boy Mark, and I'm signing off. Deuces. Peace. Oh, and also, sorry that I always look away, but it's because I'm trying to formulate my thoughts, so I'm not looking directly in a lens sometimes. So it's just that I want to make sure that I'm formulating my thought process correctly, and just trying to make sure that I give you guys a cohesive review of the song. So whenever you see me not looking at the camera or looking away, it's because I'm trying to formulate the next thing that I'm saying. But other than that, be safe, you guys. Love all you guys. Be safe. Peace.
They need rappers like me. They need rappers like me, so they can get on their fucking keyboards and make me the bad guy, Chung Lee. Hey, yo,